listening to Wake Up Hollywood with Nikki Korula and Eddie Pence, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Wake up, Hollywood. This is your host with the most, Nikki Korula. We're going to jump right into this episode. We have singer-songwriter Jackson Rosenfeld. How are you, Jackson?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. I know you go by Jackson Rosa. Tell me how that, what made you come up with that?
Well, I think when you met me originally, way back when, it was using my traditional name, but there was a lot of brand confusion because of the spelling. So, yeah, it's basically a close pseudonym. It's pretty close,
just
except the
hyphenated.
spelling is hyphenated, and the spelling is includes my Jaxon into it. So
you know what's
makes it
funny,
simple.
when I was coming up, everybody was like, Nikhi Korula's pretty wordy. Why don't you go by Nick Hill? And I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to go by Nick Hill. That's not my name. If you can't figure out my name, then you don't deserve the music. So I love when people don't change, but I also don't mind when people do change, because I know so many artists that they'll be born with a name, and then there'll be so many artists with that name or brands with that name, and they have no choice but to change. So you made the pivot. And do you think it's been beneficial just because it's been easier for people to kind of recognize or understand?
Yeah, actually, so it's kind of a nerdy thing. Actually, it's a search engine optimization. So it's at the end of the day, if you're trying to rank number one on Google and kind of have people find you, I've got my project name, which is Get Jackson, just kind of like the overarching project.
Right.
And then I needed, I wanted people to feel not confused. They were to search the spelling of my name. So.
And is your original spelling of your first name, is that original, or did you change that?
No comment.
I'm
just going to leave it for the listeners.
That's
leave
cool.
it at that.
That's cool. Leave a little mystery, dude. Leave a little mystery. So tell me, what was the moment of zen that made you want to become a musician? Was it a family member that played guitar, or was it like a song you heard on the radio? What was that moment of zen for you that said, I want to be a musician, this is it?
Earliest memory is this is actually was my dad's piano back here that you see in the thing, and he and I would duet on the piano together. He's passed away in 2010, but I still have that piano. Totally fine. And that was my first intro, and I really wanted to play the guitar when I was 9, and my mom said, how about you try piano first? We don't know how long this whole thing's is it going to be a phase or not. And then from there, I, really committed. And after that point, a few guitar lessons later, I was basically self-taught, and I just worked on putting together a little MIDI music studio in my garage. I, scrounged around, if you will, for so long to find what I could use to do it. It was like the year 2000 or 2001. So an old graphite iMac with OS 9 and an old software called eMagic, and no YouTube tutorials, no nothing, just a stack of
manuals.
Manuals, and just a little 10-year-old trying to figure all these things out. So it started with a mix of songwriting and music production, and I guess I would say the emotional reason I was going through a lot growing up, as a lot of songwriters kind of tend to have a background like that. And for me personally, I was diagnosed with a few things that just isolated me from other kids.
Right.
And it was just the easiest way of direct expression. So it just clicked really early on.
What's really funny is, I had a piano teacher. Her name was Mrs. Getz. she was the best, you know, and it's like she would teach me, and I'd never practice as much as I probably should have, and I would learn these little like minuets and things, and I just like I remember when she would start playing like the oogie oogie blues, like you know the little blues shuffles that like a piano teacher will show you, and I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, what's that? And like I never got to the piano shuffles, and I ended up quitting piano. And it wasn't because of her.
Right.
I was learning classical music with singing. I didn't want to learn it again on piano. And it's like I went back to it because the Beatles. The Beatles, I was like, oh my God, Let It Be, Hey Jude. Oh, I can figure these songs out by
So
ear.
good.
And it's like that emotional love and that bond with them is what brought me back to piano. So it's kind of interesting. I always feel like sometimes music teachers are they're trying to teach you the techniques or the best, you know, ways to go about it. And their techniques and things are not wrong. But it just like it's hard to captivate a young mind to make them want to do the work when they don't really maybe understand the techniques or the value of them or understand the value of the music. You know what I mean? It's like
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree.
really drawn to what you're working on to put that time into it. And I love
Yeah.
that you kind of like explored that on your own and found refuge in practicing. What were the kind of songs that you were practicing or the artists that you were learning just by yourself, or like were you writing right away? Tell me what that was
So
like.
so yeah, I had a lot of Beatles in the home for sure, just like you. I had a lot of access to that. I had older parents, so it was a very interesting mix of songs in the house. It wasn't like um, I had an '80s era family. It was more like I had a dad that was born in 1934,
Wow.
and so it was any mix of Tony Bennett and, old school, like, big band stuff
That's
all the
awesome.
way up through my mom's era, which was more baby boomer was more Dylan and Beatles, and, she introduced me to a lot of blues early on, quite like yourself. Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy,
Yeah.
the Delta Blues. So my first guitar teacher was actually a really incredible finger picker and blues player, and yeah, so it was really early on. Was introduced to a lot of blues artists, and some early like New Orleans jazz, and so just a lot of eclectic stuff in the home that was just kind of floating around. I personally, as I got into my adolescence, really found formed a bond with Neil Young, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, um, the Beatles, just anything with a from a piano ballad perspective. But yeah, Neil Young was yeah just folksy, like people that really dove into their writing and songwriters.
That's awesome. I love all those songwriters. I love all those influences. I'm surprised you got into a lot of those old blues artists so early because it took me time. Like I always like, I remember my dad brought me, he went to Chicago and he brought me a CD of Buddy Guy. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I put it on and I was like, yeah, this just sounds like old school. This is cool. I like it. This is cool. I like it. But I didn't fall in love with it and really I understand the blues until way later. And I think a lot of it came from the guitar playing aspect. It was like, I've always loved the blues and respected it. But I mean, man, I really got into it in the last, I'd say 5, 10 years, where it's just like, oh man, this is taking over my soul. This is everything. So
Mhm.
did you have like a moment with any particular sound that you were like, wow, this is what I want to make when I make music?
Yeah, it was kind of maybe a little bit overwhelming because I just wanted to do everything in every which way. And I would say if it was just me on a piano or guitar, that's where kind of Neil Young came into the picture. That's where, Randy Newman came into the picture.
Love Rain.
Um,
He's one of my faves.
Absolutely love people of my age range or like even a little younger. It's very rare if I can find anyone who knows or appreciates him like I do.
Oh, I love him.
Uh,
He's one of my favorites. I
yeah,
would
but
love
just
to see him
underrated.
live. Yes, underrated, very underrated. He's a songwriter, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
funny. I met Neil Young at South by Southwest, and I was like, I gave him one of my CDs. He was signing CDs for a bunch of people, and he ended up signing the copy of CD that I gave him. And he was like, here. And I was like, no, that's for you. And he's like, oh. And he put it in his pocket. It was so funny because I was just like, hey, man, this
Nice.
is for you. And he just was like signing all these things. And he signed my own CD. And then I was like, no, it's for you. He's like, oh, okay, I'll listen to it. I promise. But
I have some strange, yeah, I have some actually, I would have a signed CD from him too, from when I was little, but it was very happenstance. I never met him. A family friend of a family friend of someone's caretaker told Neil Young about me,
that's
about the,
awesome.
yeah, and he ended up signing a thing and they sent it to me in the mail,
That's
said, "Keep on
awesome.
rocking, Jackson."
Dude,
Um,
that's sweet. That's
so
very
there's all these little weird kind of stories of me running across eclectic, singer-songwriters from a young age, Tom Waits as well.
Tom
Um,
Waits. And then you listen to a lot of like really storied songwriters. Like these are pretty kind of like old school Renaissance songwriters. So I love that
yeah,
a lot of those because
and I'm not a snob either. Like I love absolutely anything. Here's what I'll tell people. I love absolutely anything that has a good melody.
yeah,
So if they show me like an EDM song or a modern pop song or
same,
a hip hop song, I really attach to that first.
yeah.
So I just at risk of sounding like a music elitist, like I love absolutely anything with a great melody.
I'm the same, and it's like I love a good voice, but it doesn't always have to be a good voice. I just love a good melody and good words. But I also love when somebody takes meticulous amounts of detail to put it into their work, to balance mixing or whatever it is. There's something about that I just really love. When somebody takes that attention to detail. A lot of artists don't always do that. Some artists do, but definitely hear it when somebody does, and it's kind of remarkable when you hear somebody that takes that amount of attention to detail. Like you listen to old Queen records, or you listen
Oh
to
yeah.
Zeppelin records, or even like newer stuff. Like I listen to Timberlake stuff, and I listen to like the Weekend stuff, and like you hear there's great production in a lot of that stuff. So there's definitely artists that put that as a forefront, into their work. But then there's a lot of artists that just like churn it out, and that's
Mhm.
cool too. I get it. That's what they have to do for to make contracts meet contract standards or whatever they got to do. But there's always a difference when you see like artists making music. What's your creative process? Do you start with lyrics? Do you start with grooves? Do you start with something, a riff? What's your creative process like?
Think there's like I can give you a top three. I feel like the first, because it's never exactly the same, and it's actually good, just from a mechanical perspective, to start from a different place each time if you can attempt to. But for me, I feel like it's that improv babble songwriting session where I'm at a piano or guitar and it's a state of flow type of moment where I'm just improvising. So an idea riff comes from the improvising, and then the whole track is built off of that one starter idea. That's a great way that it's that spontaneity that I love
Yeah,
about that process. The other way would be um, no songwriting, no lyrics, just a hook, a melodic idea, just a chord progression that I can repeat over and over again until I find the pieces that match within it and around it. And then thirdly, I feel like I tend to write super folksy story songs if I do it this way, but it just depends on what the intention is of the start of the song. But then there's just lyrics first, and which is good because you can disconnect the part of your brain that's trying to come up with all the other stuff and all the other chaos,
right,
and you can just focus on that. And that might be good if you don't want to overthink the production or the chord progression. You want to just savor that, um, and you might come up with a completely random or different idea of chords or melodic structures to put under those lyrics. So it
right.
just depends on what it calls for, and sometimes I might start over, if it ends up down the wrong path, like anything. But first choice is what I would take is the improvisation, sitting down for 30 minutes until the first spark.
I love coming up with a riff and then coming up with like gibberish lyrics or a melody
Mm,
and then having that shape into that's my favorite when it comes like that. But there are times where it's like I'll just get words and I'll just start writing words down and then I'm like I end up having to fit the music whatever I write to whatever's written. And I kind of like what I really love is the riff thing because it's the music's come it's music shaping the words instead of like the music's shaped to the words. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So it's like kind of like two different ways to kind of go about it. But I feel you. Sometimes you just can't control where it's coming from and how it's coming to you
Yeah.
in that way. Do you have like a certain style that you prefer to write in?
So as far as music or as far as lyrics,
Genre or
oh,
lyrics,
genre.
narrative
Um,
or style of music?
yeah. So in general, the alternative rock category is kind of where things default into. I would say it's just my natural like choice production. I'd say pop rock. You could also describe it as that. And then the other kind of subgenre of maybe just eclectic um, pop, like art pop, um, and in that sense, a little bit of contemporary. So I've been producing a lot of songs that are going to come out to middle to end of this year um, that are more orchestral pop. So I've got string players coming in, and it's going to give a little bit of more modern ELO, and
Well, that's cool.
just a little more orchestral rock and ballads and stuff. It's kind of the way that I wanted to do things way back, but I didn't have access to string players. Um, and I now that I do, now that I've got some session players I really love to come in and do it, that genre really speaks to me. It's do you know the artist Woodkid at all?
No, no, who's
Okay,
that?
he's a French artist, but he sings in English. But he has he does like a cinematic. I would say not baroque pop, but I don't neo folk
Yep, yep,
pop
yep.
kind of thing. So songs that are some of them are going to be pop, and some of them are going to have maybe the feeling that they would be a soundtrack, right? And so I love anything that just fits into that. You could call it cinematic blank.
Well, you know what I've discovered too, it's like we're in kind of this cool renaissance period of music because I have never in my life been so overwhelmed with the amount of choices and artists there are in music. Like it's incredible. And it's like a lot of them are great and it's just I don't even have the bandwidth to listen to catch everybody because there's just so many every day. Every day there's like hundreds, maybe thousands of new artists coming out almost every day. And it's like
Oh
so
yeah.
hard to catch them all. So I love when people are like, have you heard of so and so? And I'm like, no. And then I initially will just go listen to them just because I love catching new music. And when somebody's excited about another artist, I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, show me. That's what I love to hear. Let's play something of yours. What do you want to play first?
Let's go from most recent to least, if that's cool with you.
Cool with me.
The most recent one of the more recent ones is called "Every Time I Run."
All right, here's Every Time I Run by Jackson Rosenfield.
Every time I run, I lean my head up through the sun, shoot my eyes from everyone. Every time I run, I lean my head up through the sun, shoot my eyes from everyone. I've been sailing straight into the sun. They won't find me. I'll stop for no one. They
Very cool, man. Very cool. That's a good running song, man. Tell me what the
You
inspiration
gotta,
behind that was.
you gotta do it. What's that?
What was the inspiration behind writing the song?
That one was, I think that started as a melody, and yeah, as it's like da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That was kind of the basis, and then yeah, I think that I just really wanted to explore kind of a story song about someone that not only hides away from their emotions, and but just basically someone who's on the run, like life on the road, um, and this person that has just shut down the world from everyone, and just like it's him against the world. So it's that I guess it could work really well as as a running song because it is kind of like you're shielding your eyes from everyone. So it's this the sensation of someone who just became purely introverted, and it's because of pain, it's because of trauma, so he just has to keep moving from town to town.
I like it. I
To
like it because
yeah.
it's got a lot of energy in the pocket of the groove, and it's got like a really cool like vocal arrangement because you have all these like colors of sounds and textures, but it's like upbeat. So I'm like, man, this makes me want to go work out. Like it's a good that's a good workout song right there, you know?
I really love a good confusing, conflicting energy. If I'm being real, like just maybe a dark theme, maybe a little bit of you know a hopelessness of the lyrics, but the song underneath it just maybe tries to get you away from that helplessness at the same time.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it because you could tell it's got some darkness, but you can interpret it as being kind of like really on the surface and very kind of like positive. You know what I mean? So
That's good to hear.
it's got that like dichotomy of both, which is what I love. I love like when songs can be vague and then songs are very specific. I like both those extremes because I think interpretation is huge when it comes to listening. You know what I mean? But that's upbeat, man. You made the groove. Tell me, like, because of the lyrics, did you make the groove so upbeat because it was about like on the run, being on the run?
Yeah, there's some songs that I've been producing more recently where I just want to have more of an energetic, like not in that song, the style of rhythm is kind of more of a breakbeat, and that specific thing is, yeah, just a very energetic rhythm, but it just keeps it interesting. It just is like a driving force, whether you see it as an anxiety of the character of the song or a motivational. It just kind of keeps things interesting. So I don't know.
It's
That's
very
I just like to do that, if I can help it.
Yeah, no, I love that because it's like super modern too. It's like it's got all those like electronic influences, but it's got some rock influences. It's got some like kind of like new age and also modern pop influences. You can hear a lot of your record collection, which is cool.
Yeah, this one, the reason I'm showing it is because it kind of fits out of the box. It kind of fits my more modern sensibilities than maybe the ones we're going to hear later on. But it's yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I always I think when it comes to songs, what the thing that I love most about songs is they direct us into new frontiers. And sometimes that's like pushes us into a style that we're like, whoa, I didn't know I was gonna come up with this. And then sometimes it's also like, whoa, this is a throwback that I didn't think would go into this kind of vibe and feel.
Mhm.
So I always have a combination of like new songs and old songs on a record because I feel like as long as the collection of the songs can be cohesive, you're
Mhm.
allowed that room to kind of like stretch into other kind of like genres and dimensions a little bit.
Oh yeah. I really agree. I honestly think that if you have old songs that you never published officially, and that you bring them back into a session and just flip the script, try something really different. I have a song that I wrote in middle school about my school experience that I looked back on and I said, you know what? This really does kind of match a little bit of the anxiety of school. Now, how all these kids during the pandemic and during high school, middle school, dealing with all this newfound stress
Right.
of this era. And so I basically rewrote it just a little bit and being like, this is no, this is still pretty current. And then I don't know what I was listening to at the time, but I remember it's a lot of gospel, and I remember uh, uh, these new artists that had just been signed to Rockefeller, not Rockefeller. Well, it's Jay Z's label,
Oh, yeah, right.
and so the they have a super old school Motown like backbeat. Like all their songs are super incredible. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly their name, but I saw that I'm like, oh, that's incredible that they're featuring artists that are, that like to do old school inspired stuff. And I was just like, I just ended up internalizing that. I made a Motown style drum beat temporarily underneath it. I'm like, oh, this actually fits this song
Yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, right.
way better than I would have thought years ago. So
That's awesome. Well, let's play something else. What do you want to play next?
let's play. I feel like a good counterpart to that one would be 29 Miles.
With another running song. Here we go. No, I'm just kidding. Here's Jackson Rosa with 29 Miles.
It's been 29 miles since I hit the street. The weather outside, it can't be beat. Left the money on the table cause I couldn't wait. And the note that really told me not to hesitate. 29 years since I've walked inside without a purpose to live a very normal life. I'm buzzing at the question that I couldn't ask. The man who lives by every single task. 29 miles till I drift to sea. 29 years, where will I be? 29 yards under me. 29 places I'll never see. 29 hopes and all my dreams. It's going to be a million miles in time. 29 seconds till the bomb strikes 9. Gonna work for myself, gonna work for mankind. Going to be a very bumpy ride. 29. Adding up the numbers and subtracting life. Every moment of the day without night. It's been 29 years in the insane room. Life can't be wasted, oh not so soon. 29 miles till I drift to sea. 29 years, where will I be? 29 yards under me. 29 places I'll never see. 29 hopes and all my dreams. 29 miles till I drift to sea. 29 years, where will I be? 29 yards
very cool. You have to explain that picture first of all. What's the picture?
That is my so that this is a song from my first album called Warning Catchy. So that was the album cover. Um, yeah, it's very it is me younger me sprawled back on the floor after being blown away by like a loudspeaker or something. So yeah, it's popcorn like, records. It was a concept and I had a mentor at the time whose wife was a talented photographer. And I was like, "Can we just do this in your studio and just get up on a ladder and I'll bring all the props and so yeah, it's very like DIY album shoot type
That's
thing."
cool.
So
It's cool. Have you seen the Dali picture where he's jumping up and there's like water thrown and there's a cat coming out of the water and then there's like
I
all the
haven't.
paintings? I'll have to send it to you because
Please send it to me.
kind of reminded me of that. I was like, this is cool. There's a story behind this photo.
Yeah.
I want to what the influence is. Tell me about the influence and the inspiration behind the song.
Yeah, so yeah, this kind of fits a little deeper into my rock inspiration pocket of, my Tom Petty, my blues, my love of blues and rock. So yeah, this song um is just a body rocking kind of fun, thing. And again, the reason I said it fits maybe into the with the other one a little better is it is in fact a song about well it's a kind of depressing lyrics. Is there's just how many things I maybe I was just a little obsessed when I was writing with the number 29, but I kind of thought while I was writing this about the 27 club, the historic thing with rock stars passing away before that age. And yeah, that was probably the peak of the writing inspiration for it. It's been a while since I wrote it, but I think that was the original seed. And it
Right.
was just that feeling of like I was just about to enter my 20s when I recorded that song, which is wild to think about. But that one was yeah, I was just like, what is going to be of my life? What is going to happen in my life? Am I going to get to see? Am I going to get to see the wonders of the world? Am I going to get? What can I do in this place? And so it's like that limiting kind of voice where it's just like 29 miles till I drift to sea. 29 years, where will I be? It's just wanting to know something you just can't know. So they're just like wanting to understand yourself at a young age. Um,
How old were you when you wrote that?
let's see. That one and specifically, you had mentioned including songs on your albums that you'd written at different times, right? These songs we're playing today are from two different albums, and I included ones that I had written in elementary school and
Wow.
ones I had written in middle school that kind of led up to me produce. I worked in these albums when I was 19, going on 20. So
Well, just doing home studio
yeah,
stuff, or are you going into
yeah. So this was actually very interesting. I was very lucky to have people around after I graduated high school. I had shot this band's music video and multiple of their music videos because I kind of cohabit the space of filmmakers and music. And I did done them a lot of favors, but I was very excited when they said we're going to co-produce these songs with you, Jackson. And not only that, my mentor is an incredible singer. Did some Michael McDonald backup vocals with me, just like just some incredible talent that I was able to source. And we'd spend one day a week, one day every weekend for a whole year on these songs. Someone would be near my piano at my, it would be it was at my mom's house, like a room of my mom's house when I was still living there, and then it would be at his apartment. This was all in Northern California, and then there was only one time we went into maybe what you'd call an actual studio to track the drums. There's an incredible guitarist and drummer named Mike Taylor, who's in a band called the Wonder Bread Five.
Hmm.
They're basically the cover band. They're like the biggest booked cover band, but very talented. And so he did the drums. That was in my mentor's studio, which is like a music school. So it wasn't a treated studio. So nothing. We did nothing in treated rooms. It was all very um, on the go mobile, which is incredible because we're able to pull off some incredible sounds together.
That's very cool. And like when you're listening to music, is it? And I always think about this for my own stuff. It's like it always takes me a little bit to listen to a song of my own where I'm like, okay, it's done. It's out of the oven. It's ready to be.
Absolutely.
And then when I listen to somebody else's songs, I'm like, I wonder if they went through the same ridiculous process of like knowing it's ready, or if like somebody else made the call and the artist is just like, whatever the label thinks, whatever the producer thinks, whatever my guitar player thinks, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like, tell me what that process is for you listening to something, that you haven't worked on versus listening to something you have worked on.
Well, first of all, the smaller you can keep your team, the better.
That's
As many like less decisions as you can make, final decisions you can make. That was kind of the wonderful thing about the projects that I've done so
right.
far is it's very tight knit. I will say, yeah, it could be anything from guitar take to the 60th guitar take and wanting to throw the whole thing across a room in a fit of rage, or or it could be the final mixes, the mastering. So I think for me, it's vocals and final mix are the phases, like producing the vocals and getting to the point where you've got the mixes ready, prepared to be mastered. That is always the choke point, and I would just say that's where it gets really difficult and where your ears can start playing tricks on you if
Yeah.
you're not careful. So it's good to take if you are to do something at that level of multiple songs at once, take a week off before
Well, you know what? It's what I find is like, man, I could spend 6 months just mixing one song. I don't, but I could, because I could listen to it over and over and over until I know it's absolutely right. But I know I'll start to hate it by then. So I have this instinct where it's like, okay, I know it's close enough, and I know it's good enough.
Yeah.
Because then I still enjoy it when I listen to it. But it's like it's so hard to let go and abandon the mix.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I would also say something I thought about recently, and I totally agree with that, is play it for 5 non-musicians. Play it for at least 5 to 10 non-musicians. See what they think, because they might have a different perspective. They might have an idea of. They might say something simple as, "No, the voice. I couldn't hear the lyrics enough or the voice enough," right? But they won't criticize it like a fellow musician or a
Right.
fellow producer would. And at the end of the day, we do live in an echo chamber where if you're only going to hear feedback from musicians and producers, which is good, which is very important, but you aren't hearing a consumer's opinion necessarily.
What's funny is I actually never have my bandmates come into mixing sessions because you can like they come in, they track, and then like 8 or 9 months later they get the finished record in their hands, and they're always like, "Man, this sounds amazing." And it's like I do that because I don't want all the opinions. I want to make the record that I know I want to make.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, but it's tough sometimes because sometimes you're just like, yo, I could make this guitar pan to the right, and you want that other opinion, or and it's not always an engineer that will give that opinion that you need. I kind of tend to get that from other artists more than even musicians, but sometimes I just like I want to make this record the way I'm going to make it, and that's going to be what it is because I want to hear it a certain way. And I just, sometimes you can't trust somebody else. You can't trust that non-musician or even the musician's opinion because you're not being an artist at that point. It's like you have to cultivate it to a certain level,
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. Or like just show it to a cute and opinionated girl. Show it to someone in your show it to someone, like, at least someone who, like, is opinionated, like,
Right,
who will say something, who's not just going to try to flatter you.
right,
But that's always good. And yeah, enough time and space away from it. I would also say, and this is kind of like I'm giving this advice, but I'm saying it out loud for myself to hear. um, the taking any sort of organization or task management into account, treating these music releases as a business owner
right,
instead of as a, as something you need to finish eventually,
right,
um, can really hone down what you need to do when, and you can then structure out the amount of days, it's going to take for this part. So you have it all itemized. You have session days, you have the um, edit days, that there's going to be a day where you only do take out little pop sounds and
right,
edits. You don't do anything else. And so giving it that sort of structure, and then saying, like, you put it into blocks in a schedule, is really helpful. And it can actually get you to step away from the pitfalls of just meandering on a
right.
track. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to I find that I kind of have a process when I go through a record. It's like, especially if it's song to song, and then I like know initially I'll listen to it and I'll say, all right, I got to change this, this, and this, and that. And then I'll go into the studio knowing, okay, right away, I got fresh ears. Let's change this and this and that and
Mhm.
edit all those things or whatever. Or maybe it's a mix. Maybe it's like, oh, I want to pan this to the other speaker, or, it's little things that not everybody catches. There's so many nuances in every record that even like I did them, and then I'll listen to the record 10 years later and I'll be like, oh my God, I forgot that's there. That's so cool. And it'll surprise me in a way that I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I kind of feel like when you're making art, you're like right here, and then you get some distance to kind of see what it
Yeah.
is.
And to someone else, it might just be something that adds character. It
Right.
might just be as simple as someone say, "Oh, I never really noticed that. I just thought that was the character of the track." I thought that that added a little grit to it. So y- you know, I have to do the same thing. I have to but I try to step out of a purism as a I have to go from upset, like, quality control minded, to be able to step out from that, out of music kind of purism, of production purism,
Right.
and detach, and then go, okay, cool. Now, enough quality control. You can quality control yourself to death.
Right.
So just make it can have a little edge. It's
I
okay to have a
have
little
a friend
edge.
that's like working on a record, and he's like 3 years into the record and he's still doing mixes. And it's like, man, that could drive a person crazy because
Yeah.
I don't know how you get out of the record by that point. So it's that being said, as a guitar player, excuse me. Woo! As a guitar player, who are your biggest influences as far as your playing? I know Hendrix is one because we've jammed
Oh
Hendrix.
yeah, we did. I love well, it's kind of, yeah, just a very wide array. I mean, I loved Buddy Guy and Muddy Waters. I loved blues artist BB King as well. Um, I love oh my god, yeah, obviously Jimi Hendrix. Jeff Beck is pretty awesome.
On my fave.
Um, yeah, I kind of, I'm not too much of I tend to be more of my songwriter part of my brain, and kind of arranger and producer, composer part of my brain. Like, that kind of where I attach more of my influences to. As a guitarist, I don't geek out as much as the typical guitarist would when it comes to being a fanboy or being hyper obsessed. But I do also, now I'm thinking about Santana, um, Carlos Santana,
Yep.
um, yeah, just and John Mayer as a more modern. I like what he does. I like his chord, like people that do chord voicings in a way where
I love his soloing.
yeah.
Just love his soloing. And I covered one of his songs recently, Good Love Is on the Way. I love
Mhm.
that tune. It's such a
Oh yeah.
cool song to play, the chords, everything. I'm like, this is a killer tune. just subtle.
Yeah, and I think that you could just even simply look at chord progressions and, in his songwriting and find some incredible gems.
Yeah. Well, let's play your third song. What are we gonna play next?
So the third one, this one's called Weird, and it's a lot of people that have talked to me really like this one. It's one that I wouldn't have thought people would have liked because I it was one of the third songs that I ever wrote. It was like in the first version of it was in elementary school. So it was actually one of those, it's just a song about not belonging, as a little kid. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
Here's Jackson Rosa with Weird.
Being kinda weird is underrated. You don't really know if you love to hate it. So do you really know the people that love us? The clouds and the wind in the sky above us. So how do we catch a person by the ear when jumping off a cliff is for reasons clear? And how do we catch a person by the eye when they're looking at the ceiling, not the sky? Do you really know who's off the hated? The bully at school or the one who's made it? So when you're staring through those heavenly clouds, the one who touched the right thing feels awful proud. How do you catch a person by the ear when jumping off a cliff? It is for reasons clear. And how do we catch a person by the eye when they're looking at the ceiling, not the sky? Do you really know? Being kinda weird. Being really weird is underrated. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, how do we catch a person by the ear when jumping off a cliff is for reasons clear? And how do we catch a person by the eye when they're looking at the ceiling, not the sky? We are weird.
Yeah. When were you in a spacesuit? What is that spacesuit?
That's good little old me at one day at a space camp.
The one in Florida?
No, it was somewhere in the Central Valley in California.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
Did
yeah,
you
yeah.
go to like a anti-gravity chamber by chance?
I think I wasn't. I showed up there with my dad. Wanted me to go. My dad was a pilot, as a part of his like one of his big things that he did, and so he wanted me to go. I think I was too young to go, but he managed to convince them. He's like, my son really wants to. I think he really wanted to be there too. So, so anyway, the point is that I got there just ridiculous with a huge spacesuit on this little kid, and I don't think we did the whole. I think there were some rules. We did do the whole activities, but I remember, yeah, that's one of those old pictures in the photo box. So yeah, that album I released under a different artist name at one point, and so the re-release or the redistribution I did with this graphic because I felt like it encompassed, a lot of this album is called Life with Oxygen. Life with Oxygen. It's coming of age. It's like a very coming of age style album. A lot of unrequited love songs. A lot of growing pains style songs. So
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, some of those songs when I was writing them, you don't realize how prolific you are. And it's like now as I'm older, I'm like, oh, I don't write like that. But I go back to those songs. I'm like, man, this is a good song. I need to record this. This is, you don't realize how like just how it's flowing out of you because you're feeling all the feels and all the emotions of life. So it's just, drawing inspiration you're drawing inspiration constantly.
sometimes your songs are more mature than you are. Sometimes you have to grow up and grow
Right.
into your own songs.
That's very
Sometimes, and then you come back, you make some edits, but that's how I felt with a few songs. Is just like I feel like I understand. I know exactly why I wrote this. I know exactly when I wrote this.
right.
But yeah, it's just important to explore. What was it, 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton? Like that was one that she in that interview said I, I had written this. This was one of the first things I wrote when I was in college, or when I was in school. She didn't want to make that the single on her album because it was just such an early idea, right?
Wow, that's
And
crazy.
so, right, so that one was an example of like that. But in its simplicity and its like wonder, it actually works the best to use it and bring it and do
Right.
something with it. So
Do you play out at all? Do you play these songs out anywhere?
yeah, so after the pandemic, during the pandemic I went into hiding. I went into my bunker, if you will, as far as live performance, and I really hunkered down with a lot of stuff, and improve my life in many ways that I feel like I needed to do in order to write my best work and to improve my space and my mental health. So, I really took a little bit of a breather from live performance and just continued writing and producing. Um, yeah, as of this year, I plan to. I've been in contact and been starting to book stuff for summer and for fall. So yeah, the plan is intact. I also feel like here in Hollywood and North Hollywood and around the streets, there's more walking traffic now. It took a while for things to feel alive
Right,
again,
right.
and it just feels like the right time. And it's also because I didn't have that many new songs to promote. I was still had a track list that was spread throughout the decade, and so I needed to make sure that I have, new stuff to promote and that I'm not just out playing just my old songs. I'd like these songs to be something people can come up with or come back to and discover, the ones we played
Right.
today in my catalog, which is super important. But I want to make sure that the new ones I'm working on are, out in the wild.
Yeah. No,
So, yeah.
absolutely. Where can people find you if they want to find you online?
They can find me at GET, so Get Jackson, JAXON.com. Instagram on the same handle, Get Jackson. Um, you can Google my name, Jackson Rosa, JAXONROSA. And yeah, or Get Jackson. Find me on Instagram. I'm most active there. TikTok, same handle. Yeah, and YouTube. I've been starting to pay a lot more attention to my YouTube channel. So yeah, go and subscribe. Go and find me. DM me. Let me know if there's anything you want to hear or anything that you're interested in, or if you have a favorite track.
Well, Jackson, thank you for being a guest on Wake Up Hollywood. We're gonna have to do another jam soon, man. We're long overdue for a jam.
We are very long overdue. More Hendrix, and actually, let's do some Randy Newman this time.
I'm ready, dude. I'm always down to do some Randy Newman, dude. Let me know when
Wonderful.
you're there. On behalf of Jackson, myself, I think my bulldog Otis, you're about to see it. Oh, Otis!
Otis. Oh my God.
Otis!
Come here.
Otis!
Adorable.
Isn't he
Adorable.
awesome? He's awesome.
He's awesome.
That's always a
He's
good
awesome.
omen when he comes in. He always comes in during the interviews randomly, but yeah, sometimes the door is closed. But that one I didn't close it properly.
Dogs love the sound of my voice. Yeah,
You're just like, ow!
exactly. I'm a howler.
Well, on behalf of Jackson, myself, Otis, and Sam, we'll see you guys here next week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll see you. Wouldn't want to be ya. Cheers.
You're listening to Wake Up Hollywood with Nikki Korula and Eddie Pence, right here on LA Talk Radio.